March 11, 2025, the Ukrainian Armed Forces 30th and 54th Mechanized Hunter aircrafts, along with the 80th Airborne Brigade, detect a large-scale Russian assault in the Siversky direction. Upon noticing the movement of Russian forces toward the area, Ukrainian forces quickly mobilize and, after confirming the enemy's positions, initiate artillery strikes. These strikes prove highly successful, resulting in the destruction of several Russian vehicles. As a result of Ukraine's intense bombardment, the area becomes shrouded in smoke. However, some Russian vehicles continue moving forward without being hit. These vehicles are accompanied by advancing Russian infantry who disembark and move toward the Ukrainian defensive lines. Ukrainian forces intervene using drones and precise artillery strikes. Initially, the Russian vehicles are destroyed, followed by the targeting and elimination of the infantry by drones. Despite the large force of Russian troops arriving in the area, they are unable to succeed against the Ukrainian defenses and technologically advanced drones. Ukrainian forces managed to neutralize over 30 Russian vehicles, while the Russian infantry deployed to the region is also struck by drones, resulting in their deaths. This operation enables Ukraine to repel a major Russian assault and secure the region. March 13, 2025. The 61st Motorized Brigade detects Russian infantry while patrolling the village of Kurilivka in the Kursk region. Ukrainian reconnaissance teams carefully observe enemy movements, identifying the soldiers' positions and possible escape routes. It is noted that the infantry is advancing in open terrain without finding a suitable area for cover. This provides an advantage to the Ukrainian forces. After some time, Ukrainian troops mobilize for the operation. First, a heavy reconnaissance flight is conducted in the area and enemy units are fully detected. Then, a Ukrainian drone operator begins the attack, directing an FPV drone to the target area. When the drone reaches the exact location where the Russian infantry has gathered, it drops a bomb with high precision. The explosion turns the area into a battlefield. A few Russian soldiers who survive the attack panic and try to escape. One of them heads toward the nearby forested area, intending to shoot down the drone following him. He fires his weapon at the drone but fails. The Ukrainian operator patiently follows the soldiers' movements, waiting for the right moment. A few seconds later, a second attack is launched against the fleeing Russian infantry. The drone executes a perfect maneuver, strikes the target, and neutralizes the soldier. Meanwhile, other Russian infantry in the area are lying motionless on the ground. Ukrainian forces use unmanned aerial vehicles to ensure that all enemy troops are neutralized, detecting each soldier individually. The drones then destroy each target with precise strikes. As all the Russian infantry in the area are neutralized, Ukrainian forces successfully complete the operation and secure the area. This operation is recorded as an effective response to the Russian infantry's tactic of advancing in small groups in border areas. The Ukrainian army successfully limits enemy movements and maintains control over the region with such attacks. March 13, 2025. The K2 Battalion of the Mechanized Brigade, during its reconnaissance operation near the village of Verkhnekamiansky in the Donetsk region, detected a Russian personnel carrier while tracking enemy movements. Ukrainian forces quickly mobilized and launched a direct attack on the target. Following the explosion, the Russian personnel in the vehicle were forced to exit. However, for the Ukrainian forces, this attack was just the beginning. As the Russian soldiers scattered due to the impact of the attack, Ukrainian forces carried out a second strike, causing significant losses and injuries to the Russian infantry. After the attack, surviving Russian soldiers began to flee, but they could not find a safe shelter in the area. The forested area around Verkhnekamianska offered them temporary cover, but it was not a long-term solution. As they continued fleeing, Ukrainian operators, after continuous surveillance using drones, targeted the movements of the Russian infantry and initiated new strikes. One Russian soldier panicked, became a more obvious target as he ran. The soldier, now more vulnerable in open terrain, eventually lay down and tried to crawl to hide. However, during his attempts to conceal himself, he started running again and was still pursued in the open. As the drone approached, the Russian soldier became increasingly vulnerable with each passing second. A few minutes later, the Ukrainian drone successfully targeted him and neutralized him with a precise strike. At that moment, another Russian soldier trying to flee with the first one appeared on the scene. The two soldiers started running again, but this time the Ukrainian operator began following them closely. The drone operator carefully tracked their movements along the path the Russian infantry was taking. The soldiers noticed the drone approaching and briefly stopped, observing the drone in a fixed position. This moment was likely when they anticipated that the Ukrainian drone would attack and that they would try to maneuver to escape. However, it was also evident that the condition of the previously injured Russian soldier was quite severe. The Ukrainian drone operator, timing the attack perfectly, launched a final strike. The explosion not only neutralized one Russian soldier, but also the other soldier who had been fleeing with him. After the explosion, both Russian infantrymen were killed. March 14, 2025. The motorized rifle brigade detected a Russian ATV group near Basivka in the Sumy region. This movement was immediately tracked by Ukraine's unmanned aerial vehicles. The footage showed that the Russian forces were notably cautious as they entered the area. However, as soon as the Russians became aware of the Ukrainian drones, they dismounted from their vehicles and quickly fled into the forest. This movement occurred simultaneously with the initiation of the Ukrainian attack. During these tense moments, the Russian infantry experienced significant panic. As they tried to flee deeper into the terrain, they began reboarding their vehicles in an attempt to escape the area. The panic experienced by the Russian group put them in a difficult situation. The group, unable to organize quickly, struggled to start their vehicles and reach a safe zone, but they were targeted again by Ukrainian forces. Thanks to the effectiveness of the Ukrainian operation, the group was attacked before they could reorganize and began to disperse more with each passing second. This disarray created a major vulnerability in the Russians' intervention and escape strategies. As the operation progressed, Ukrainian forces continued targeted drone strikes, leaving the Russian infantry scattered and highly vulnerable. In the following stages, the Russian attempts to regain control of the chaotic situation were unsuccessful. Reports indicate that at this point, the Russian military group was effectively neutralized. All of them were killed in the attack, March 12, 2025. The Hunters of the Heights, Unmanned Systems Battalion of the Airborne Brigade continued its reconnaissance operations in the region, successfully detecting Russian shelters and strategic equipment. With the help of advanced reconnaissance technologies and drone usage, Ukrainian forces precisely located Russian positions. After confirming the coordinates, they mobilized to launch an attack. Ukraine's operation was swift and effective. Drones targeted all Russian shelters in the area, destroying each one individually. Each strike was carried out with great accuracy, and the Russian positions were wiped out without even having the opportunity to defend themselves. Ukraine's unmanned systems provided a significant strategic advantage in the region through their target detection and strike capabilities. Later, Ukrainian forces targeted Russian personnel carrier vehicles and ammunition depots located around the shelters. These vehicles provided mobility to Russian troops while also offering logistical and ammunition support. As a result of successful drone strikes, these vehicles and the ammunition depot were also destroyed. Immediately following the attacks, Russian forces in the area suffered heavy losses and morale decline. At the end of the operation, Ukrainian forces had destroyed 5 Russian shelters, 3 personnel carrier vehicles, and 1 ammunition depot in the region. March 14, 2025. During reconnaissance operations in the region, Ukrainian forces spot a Russian infantryman advancing alone. As the Russian soldier continues to move forward, he is tracked by a Ukrainian unmanned aerial vehicle. After a while, the Ukrainian drone launches an attack, and the Russian soldier is suddenly shaken by the explosion. The Russian infantryman quickly reacts by firing at the drone but fails to hit it. However, as he attempts to move another step forward, he is once again targeted by an FPV drone. At the moment of the explosion, the Russian soldier is severely wounded but survives. After observing the situation, Ukrainian forces send another FPV drone. This time, the explosion is much stronger. During the attack, it is likely that the ammunition in the Russian soldier's backpack is triggered, significantly amplifying the explosion. The powerful blast ultimately kills the Russian infantryman. Following this successful strike, Ukrainian forces continue their reconnaissance activities and detect mines near a Russian shelter in the area. Ukrainian operators immediately take action and deploy an FPV drone to strike the targets with pinpoint accuracy. After the explosion, a massive blast occurs, destroying a Russian ammunition depot. This operation showcases Ukraine's precise reconnaissance and targeting capabilities while inflicting significant damage on enemy positions, thereby enhancing operational effectiveness. March 13, 2025. The Black Raven Unmanned Systems Battalion of the Ukrainian Forces detects a Russian ammunition depot during reconnaissance operations in the region. Reports indicate that the target is a fuel depot. Ukraine proceeds with an attack using a Vampire drone, launching several bombs at the target. The strikes from the Vampire drone effectively destroy the ammunition and fuel in the depot. After the attack, Ukrainian forces continue their operation and move on to other targets in the area. Shortly after, as Ukrainian forces continue scanning the area, they spot 3 Russian infantrymen. The Russian soldiers, unaware of the Ukrainian drones tracking them, move toward their positions. The Ukrainian operator identifies the Russian soldiers inside a shelter and begins bombing the target with the Vampire drone. The bombs dropped in quick succession effectively collapse the Russian shelter. As significant destruction occurs in the shelter, Ukrainian forces deploy an FPV drone to deliver the final blow. With this final attack, the shelter and the 3 Russian infantrymen inside are completely destroyed. This operation demonstrates Ukraine's precision in executing attacks and its effective use of unmanned aerial vehicles, which severely damage Russian positions and establish strategic superiority on the battlefield. Ukrainian forces also detect an electronic device belonging to Russian forces in the area. According to reports, the device is referred to as the repelled complex and is used against drones. Ukrainian forces strike and destroy the device with an FPV drone. The Groza series is a Belarusian-made radio-electronic warfare (REB) system designed to counter UAVs and other radio-controlled threats. These systems are designed to disrupt the control of enemy drones, block their signals, or render them ineffective by sending deceptive signals. These systems are actively used by the Russian army to suppress, disrupt, and neutralize Ukrainian UAVs and drones on the battlefield. Russia has been deploying electronic warfare systems on a large scale to counter Ukraine's drone attacks. Versions such as Groza S, Groza R, and Groza 6 can block signal reception or disrupt navigation systems of Ukrainian reconnaissance and strike drones, providing Russian forces with protection from aerial threats. However, Ukraine is working to counter Russia's REB systems by developing its own electronic warfare systems and seeking support from the West. In particular, drone control via Starlink and other satellite systems offers an alternative to Russian electronic jamming, providing Ukraine with a way to mitigate the effects of electronic suppression. March 13, 2025. The Ukrainian forces are conducting a comprehensive reconnaissance and attack operation targeting Russian positions and units in the Zaporizhzhia region. Recent operations in the area highlight how Ukraine effectively operates with targeted precision strategies and technological superiority. These operations further demonstrate the strength of the tactical strategies Ukraine employs to break through Russia's defense lines. The operation begins with reconnaissance flights, where Ukrainian forces utilize unmanned aerial vehicles to detect Russian infantry moving alone in the area. The drones track the movements of the Russian soldiers, identifying even the smallest target, and then sequentially carry out attacks. These precise strikes lead to the neutralization of a significant portion of the Russian infantry. The drones target not only the Russian soldiers but also nearby defense lines and positions. Many Russian soldiers take cover in the ruined structures in the area, but these are closely monitored by Ukrainian reconnaissance drones. While Russian forces attempt to use destroyed buildings in the villages as shelters, Ukrainian operators pay special attention to these areas. The reconnaissance drones detect even the slightest movements in these regions and initiate attacks. After detecting Russian shelters, the drones are precisely aimed at the targets and destroyed. This strategy on the battlefield shows how Ukraine is not only using ground operations, but also effectively deploying electronic reconnaissance and attack tactics to put the enemy in a difficult position. As Russian positions are eliminated, armored vehicles and weapon systems in the area are also targeted. At the end of the operations, a significant number of Russian soldiers in strategic positions are neutralized. With these successful operations, Ukrainian forces considerably weaken Russian defenses in the Zaporizhzhia region and gain a strategic advantage over the area. The reconnaissance and attack capabilities provided by the drones reinforce Ukraine's tactical superiority at this stage of the war.